Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 691, recorded live early on Sunday, December 4th. Hey, it's December already. How did that happen? With me this week, we have Vooduspyce.
Hey, everyone.
We have Grubbby.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Tashr.
Howdy, folks.
This would be a lot of fun. Full house for review. Always a good show. This week's screenshot, Codex tours the market in the 573rd screenshot of the week. Thanks for sending in this week's screenshot. That's the smuggler's outfit from Saltmarsh, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Looks familiar. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears for another, 27 days? Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. Next shows, because I'm so good at doing what I'm saying at this point in my life. Should be a show next week. There should be a show the week after that. And then there's going to be a hiatus for the holidays. I'm just going to put that out there into space right now. So there's probably going to be another 3 maybe even 4 week gap around that. There's some things happening around there. Yeah, anyways, so that's where we're going. There'll probably be a year-end. Probably next week might just be the year-end review show, even though it's a little early, and then we'll kind of play that through or something like that. Let's figure it out. There will definitely not be a live show between. Christmas is on a weekend, New Year's is on a weekend. There's not going to be live shows that weekend at all. Period. So, anyways, yeah. So that's what's going on here on the podcast this week. We're going to review update 57. 57's been out for a couple month or so. A small update, but 3 weeks, something like that. If I'd have done my job, I might have looked that up. But it's been out for a little bit. It's a small update, so it's about time we're gonna review that. Also have I think an interesting question from a listener that we'll talk about, and then of course we'll start with our game news.
Wednesday, November 9th.
So that when it came out? Yeah, so it's almost been a month. Sounds about right. All right, so game news for the last couple weeks. There really hasn't been a lot. The biggest news came this week. On Wednesday, a couple things happened. First, they turned off the daily dice on hardcore. So I think the idea there is to encourage people to get off of hardcore, so that they can, not have a situation where people get stuck there last second or something like that. I don't know. I don't mind if they turned off the daily dice on hardcore, but boy howdy, some warning would have been nice.
Indeed.
I'm sure there's several people who had shards on hardcore still that hadn't spent them, that were planning on spending them on daily dice. I was sort of one of them. I happened to spend them 3 days before they turned them off.
Yeah, I was one of them, and so I ended up buying some augments.
Yeah. So, word of the wise for future hardcores: when the season ends, spend the shards. Maybe the day before it quote ends. I don't know. Spend them when you're done or something like that. I assume that they're going to continue turning off the daily dice. Hopefully, they will give us more notice about when.
I didn't realize they disabled that feature. I thought that just meant you didn't get your free roll, but they just disabled the whole feature, huh?
On hardcore, as when they did the reboot on Wednesday, it went away.
Wow, I didn't realize that till just now.
Yeah, there was that someone actually posted a shot, in the menu you pop up and it has daily dice. That wasn't even there. The menu option wasn't there. You couldn't access the panel. I assume that's because they can't just turn off the daily rolls. Although which seems kind of weird because they can turn the gold rolls on and off for individual people.
Yeah,
So, but no, they turned it off and you couldn't even access it.
not that.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a jarring and rude wake up for some folks Wednesday. The other thing with Hardcore Season 7 has been announced. The 7th season of Hardcore League begins on December 7th. Surprise! And we're running until Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. So a 2-month one. This is another Redux season. It's a Redux of Season 2. The rewards are the same as Season 2. There will be a 20% Reaper XP boost active to account for. And I think they did that when they did Redux Season 1. I can't remember. But anyway, any case, so that's what's going on there. It will be one of the changes to Season 6 was that you could only be 2 levels higher than a quest. They will be going back to 4 levels higher than a quest for Season 7. They also did announce that for 7th season of Hardcore League, they will enable the festival winter events during their normal period. So that would be Festivals, Snow Peaks, if it happens to be active during that time. It sounds like it will be. And if they've talked about returning Night Revels for a weekend or 2, that will also be active on Hardcore League. So clearly some reaction to some of the feedback they got with Night Revels and Hardcore, and it's like, hey, like we would like to run these things. So they're gonna have them active there. I'm not entirely sure how effective that is from the standpoint of, hey, I want to run the festival and grind out the festival on Hardcore, but yeah. So that was the Hardcore news. Thoughts?
There's nothing to grind out. It's just getting chests and getting chest tokens and turning them into the Jester, right?
For that one, not so much for Night Revels
Oh, Night Revels, yeah.
and the Snow Peaks.
I mean, it's
I
just the
personally think
encore
it's a
of
good
Night
idea.
Revels.
I'm a fan of having the festivals. The environment should be the same on Hardcore wherever possible to me as it is on Live. So I'm a fan. The only thing I don't want them to do is put VIP specific boosts on Hardcore.
So you're advocating even for like the bonus days, or
I wouldn't have a problem with that as long as they said up front that was the case. I don't want them to change it in the middle of a season again, but
sure,
Yeah, that's not fair.
because they did change for Season 6. I think they said, "Oh, we'll turn on Night Revels," like when it happened. Wasn't something that was known going in. Although I don't know if that was necessarily a big deal because it's not like everyone gets the same shake at that. It's not like they're changing your build during the season.
Yeah, they've done that too.
Yeah, and they're going to continue doing that.
That's not really fair. And speaking of Hardcore and build changes, I really think that it's quite unfair that they take information that they've gleaned from the people that are the very most successful on Hardcore and then change the game for everybody based on that information. And it certainly has felt for the last few years that that's exactly what they're doing. If they find out what works, then they nerf it.
I will point out that they have made changes that were coming from the other direction. Like they did a bunch of balancey stuff kind of in lower level quests because they found that a lot of people were getting killed at those levels.
And that's fair too.
Sentinel's electric floor.
Yeah. I mean, not to discount your point there, Tashr, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning that it has gone the other direction a little bit as well.
Sure. And there have been some massive changes to the game overall. So that's not. Now, my point was though that it has certainly felt as if they're taking the information that they get from the ones who do the very best on Hardcore, and then they make it so that whatever they did before is not going to work next time. So anyway, regardless, I think hardcore is an interesting thing to do. I think this one is too soon. I mean, the current one stops today, right? And the next one starts Wednesday. So there's no real time in between. But on the other hand, people may have more time this time of year, and having a short season may fit well with some of their other things. So that it's certainly not a required thing for anyone to do, and a lot of people do enjoy it a lot.
Anyone else
I
have
also
thoughts?
hear, oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh, I also hear that people saying, well, I don't like when hardcore's on because there's no one here to group with. So, there's pros and cons both ways.
The Redux season doesn't bother me. If anything, I'm just glad that there's nothing I want, so I won't even be there.
Yep.
I didn't go there for season 2 because I didn't like the motif of the rewards. I only do hardcore for rewards. I don't do it for leaderboard. But I'm wondering if we're seeing a pattern here, because are we gonna see Redux season, then regular, then Redux, then regular? It kind of seems that way. It might be too early to draw that conclusion, but kind of seems like that's what we're gonna see.
I think the answer to that is yes, but not necessarily in a pattern. Here's what this says to me. They have not, publicly said how much hardcore draws in. I think it's safe to assume that hardcore is subsidizing the rest of the game at this point. That they pull in a lot of revenue from hardcore. People go over there and buy stuff. And if we're doing hardcores this quickly, I think it says to me that they're looking at hardcore as a a really solid revenue stream. Having a Redux season allows people to get to hardcore without them having to do a lot more work and create a new thing. It can just hey, we'll turn this one on that we already have. So it's an easy revenue stream for them. I don't know why you would do it so quickly. Otherwise, people have clearly said, or even saying right now on the forum, this is too quick. It will have been off for a month, a little more than a month, because I think it ended 20-something, late October, so maybe 5-6 weeks. It's been off, and they're gonna turn it back on again. There's a lot of clamoring from people that, like was just said, that this draws people away from the main servers. And if you're gonna be doing this frequently, can we consolidate the servers a little bit somehow, some way? It's kind of, yeah.
I don't know. I
wanna
didn't
try to-
see. I definitely recognize that hardcore is a revenue stream for SSG. I didn't get that impression that was the motive here. Maybe it is, and I could be totally wrong. I just see this as hey, here's a quickie to go back and get some things that maybe you missed. That was my only interpretation, really.
They probably don't want to start it during January, right? If they started at the beginning of the year, because they generally have new stuff, kind of people coming off of holidays. They want to have a new project that they're likely to be putting out before too long from then. So their focus may be, this may just kind of fit in all right with what their current schedules are. I appreciate that people spend money to help support our game on hardcore or any place else, of course, because it keeps us all in all kinds of fun.
Grubbby, did you want to jump in here?
The only thing I was going to say is something similar to what Tasha said, in that we don't know what their schedule looks forward going forward, since they haven't really told us anything. And we've got New Year followed by anniversary event, and squeezing one in between there might be pretty difficult.
Sure.
It's a slow time of year. It does give some people something to do.
Slow time here for some people.
Well, and a
Which is
lot of
always
people
true.
did like the motif for some of these these seasons. Personally, I'm with Voodoo. I didn't care for this. That's why we really didn't run season 2 at all. That's not that style of thing is not something to my personal preference, but a lot of people really like it and they really enjoy it. So giving people who weren't able to get it the first time another opportunity to do so with the updated numbers, I think that's a good idea.
We'll also point out that season 2, when the first time around, it was VIP only. So if you weren't VIP, you didn't have access to it.
That's true.
Free
And
to
I'm
play
glad that
will
they've
now
opened
have
it
it.
up to free to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good change.
Yeah, don't wrong. I'm not anti-hardcore or anything, but it looks to me like we're going to have hardcore active more often. And if we're going to have hardcore active more often, I have concerns about the health of the main servers, because it does draw people away from the main servers. I'm sure.
Mega server, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways they don't even need to necessarily do a mega server. Like, they could consolidate some of the servers down a little bit, and you could do it in ways that are optional too, right? Like, they're talking. Some of the other news that came out this week is Sarlona is having transfer issues, so they've now said that they'll offer free transfers to Sarlona as well as Orion in a future date. I mean, you could do that anyways and have say that, okay, we're gonna lose a server, whatever server that is, and say that I'm just gonna pick on Wayfinder a little bit because there's fewer people to send me hate mail from Wayfinder. It's like, hey, we're gonna sunset Wayfinder. So transfer here, free transfers from Wayfinder. Send your character, or any character from Wayfinder can go anywhere else for free, right? And
Guilds is the only major problem there.
what was that?
I said guilds is the major problem with that.
This is true. There's some ways around that too, but here's also the thing: if it's optional, like, that kind of helps with that. But yeah, there's the guild problem. They could solve that if they needed to. There's things they can do. But what I said, like, you could just consolidate the servers as an option, like, instead of forcing people to consolidate, like, you could just have it as an option, like, I don't know.
Well, how many characters are you allowed to have in an account? There is a limit, and that's going to be a problem if you have characters on other servers. If you're anywhere close to the limit and you have some number of tunes over there, you may not be able to bring them over because there's not enough slots.
Sure. Look, there's always going to be, like, fringe cases that, what about this group of people? But that group of people is probably pretty darn small, and we can probably solve those problems for those people. Like,
But those are
ways
things that
around
have to be recognized and addressed, not just throw it up in the air to say ignore. Those are technical problems that need to be recognized prior to making some of those changes.
Yeah, but here's kind of where the number of people I think that have so many characters that they couldn't consolidate off of a server or two. Like, I doubt that's a lot of I don't think you're gonna run into very many people is like, oh, I have 20 characters over here and 20 characters over here and 20 characters over here. Also, again, if the server merging is optional, right? Hey, we'd like to encourage people to vacate this server and consolidate on the other servers, right? You don't have to. We're not gonna turn the server off or anything, but we'd like to consolidate servers a little bit and say, like, these two servers, you can have free transfers off and go somewhere else.
We have a number of relatively new guildies who have come to Kyber because the raiding scene, wherever they were before, has been slow, and they came to Kyber because we have a more active raiding scene. And so that's been a benefit for some of us, but it definitely shows that there is some issue with the population distribution.
People are already migrating, paying for it. I think if you made it free, you'd get more migration and kind of, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's way too expensive, in my opinion, right now to move, especially since it's not a technical, insurmountable problem.
yeah. Well, the price point there is to prevent people from going too crazy about switching servers.
Sure.
But in any case, that covers. Oh, there was something that I didn't write down that I thought of that was in the news, and I can't. Was maybe it'll come up later. Anyways, bonus days, 10% buddy boost. They announced this. They didn't announce this on the forums. I think they announced it on Twitter. I assume it's due today, the 4th. That would be normal. It does not apply to raids, but 10% XP boost for people in your party. One of my favorite boosts.
Mhm.
Also, festival coins have started dropping. The Gestal will arrive on Thursday. I remember what I was going to say. And will stick around through January 16th. Coin drops runs through January 9th. Let's see. The Hardcore Season 7 is coming on the 7th. They are going to do a game update, at least to revert the what's it called? The cooldown thing. The issue with cooldowns on
Yes.
activated things, abilities.
Finally.
Yeah. The thing that, yeah, it's been like a month. Literally, same. Was this update 57, right? So they are going to revert that change before Hardcore Season 7 starts on Wednesday. Which, I guess reverting a reversion change is probably less problematic to assemble and stuff. Although if it was this easy, I don't understand why it didn't drop earlier. I don't know. Does it seem weird to anyone else that here's this reversion, a change to the game that they've been talking about doing for a month? I'm kind of stuck in this place of either it's, if it was this easy, why didn't we do it sooner? If it wasn't this easy, why are you tying it to a date that firmly with having Hardcore Season 7 drop?
I will say this feels like another one of the logging things where they turn on some kind of logging in their programs and to keep logs of stuff for some period of time, and then they turn it off to analyze the logs and make adjustments after that. I could be wrong. Don't know what their architecture is. Know nothing about how anything is written, but having worked extensively with software that has things that you can turn on and off for logging and how that feels when you're using it, it feels a lot like that. Frustrating as all get out, though, I will say. You hit a key, doesn't happen. And we've had problems with that before because there's lag in our game. But you hitting a key and nothing happening for a while is really frustrating. On the other hand, if they're logging it so they can figure out how to fix it, then they have fixed many, many, many of the lagging situations, thankfully. In that case, I'm not going to fuss too much if they get it fixed sooner rather than later, I hope.
The sales for the week through December 8th get a boost, 30% off of Sovereign XP elixirs, Treasure Hunter elixirs, Creator Slayer boosts, and long-lasting Supreme ability potions. Also, the weekly coupon is a 5 free long-lasting Owl's Knowledge potions. The coupon code is knowledge. And December deals will start next week on December 8th. Feels like a week late, but okay, whatever. I kind of wonder if someone pointed out on the forums like, "Hey, date December deals." Like, "Oh yeah, we should do that." Oops, they missed the first week. People might have been on holidays or something like that. I don't know. Anyways,
Good.
there you go. So Goldie's saying there's 5 weekends in December. That's probably true. Well, okay, but that last weekend it's gonna go through into January, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I do appreciate maybe they want to have a December deals over the New Year's weekend. Okay. Anyways, hey, December deals are coming next week. So pay attention to those. Hopefully you got some. If there's some stuff you're hoping is on sale, you bought some double bonus points that were on sale recently. And you can get some fun.
Mhm.
All right, we'll get into a little bit of lightning post. Jeff wrote in and said, a topic I wish you would address is the current philosophy the design team is on continually updating the meta. How many times have we heard something along the lines of the meta was getting stale and needed to be shaken up? They're calling out update 50, 51, 53, 55, 57 at least. Maybe miss one. So something like 5 times in 18 months. As a hardcore casual player or a casual hardcore player, these continual changes to shake up the meta are extremely frustrating and, to be honest, have been more of a detriment to their desire to play than to boost it. I would say that it used to be between 2 and 3 years between shakeups to the meta, and more in tune with that schedule than the current schedule. A Zerger or can afford to play many more hours a week if they want, and are able to adapt to the changing meta much more rapidly than slower casual players. Simply put, in a matter of hours, they can get a character ready to do a reincarnation and start fresh, when the casual player could take weeks, months, or even years. As a player, he gets the idea to need to keep the game fresh. Otherwise, more players leave and are replaced by returning players or new players. That being said, a number of these changes just feel like the dev team is throwing wet noodles at the wall and seeing which ones stick. Thoughts?
I do have
Well,
some, but I want to let others go first.
All right. I can really empathize with what Jeff's saying here. I've certainly felt my builds get nerfed and impacted by the meta changes. But I think in this particular case, they've been making a concerted effort to rewrite major systems so that they scale, especially as they look forward to going from level 32 to 40 cap. So I think that's the motivation. Now we've had a few things get caught in the crossfire here that can be painful, but I think they actually have a reason behind it. It's not just a shake up the meta kind of theme.
I think there is, with the idea of the shake up the meta, I do feel like this is like not actual data, it's kind of anecdotal, but it feels to me like most of that conversation of late has been more around shaking up hardcore than it has been like changing builds and stuff at those levels. I don't know if that's
Result in that.
accurate, but that's what it felt like to me.
Which does kind of go back to my earlier point about making changes specifically based on what was successful on hardcore.
Yeah.
So I'm going to offer the radical perspective here.
Go for it.
Just something completely different, I suppose. To me, the meta is like soccer. I don't even pay attention to it. My guilty Gigi always says, play what you like and you'll always like what you play. I seriously don't pay attention to what the trends are in the game, and I just keep playing what I enjoy. There's the ebb and the flow of DDO. I've been playing it for 13 years. It's just another perspective. Some people aren't trying to chase whatever the new thing is. And I'm one of those people, so I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to keep playing the builds I enjoy and keep playing this game I enjoy and keep grouping with my friends and having fun doing that.
I certainly can agree with that, but I also have had more than a few, like my monk, that have gotten caught in the crossfire of the meta and been destroyed for no real reason.
And your warlock. Over and over and over again. Both of them over and over and over again.
Yeah, I had a warlock that, I played before the nerfs. I still play the same warlock after the nerfs.
I think there is a truth there. Like if you're someone who's chasing this like top tier build, which does change much more rapidly, you're gonna feel those changes a lot more. Like I would say that I haven't felt like the meta changing in my builds that much this often. Granted, I don't play. I have not tended to play a lot of prime DPS builds in the past, or especially the last couple of years. Like if you look at the characters that I'm really playing the most, it's a tank, a healer, and a bard. So like I'm not out there like doing massive DPS or even really worrying about that. So, and if you're playing a high tier DPS build, like that's where you're more likely to run into a nerf. But I mean mileage. I think mileage is definitely going to vary depending on what builds you're playing and what kind of your mindset is going in.
I like to play what I like to play, and Grubby and I played together a lot. And we've tended to build a duo that can be successful running what we consider to be a reasonable level of content, which, try to push ourselves a little bit so it keeps fun and fresh. But we're not trying to, take the socks off, and we're not trying to build like the optimal, best whatever kind of characters. Now, if we have them, that'll be great, but I don't consider myself that player. And so what saying that, most of my characters have had a fair amount of support involved. Now, my main, who's been running for past lives now for a number of years since they came out practically. My main is a melee trapping bard. She's currently a storm singer, so she's not a melee trapper, but that's my preference for that particular character. And the way that Grubby was building his tunes in order to do our past lives has changed a lot over the last few years, simply because they stopped working reliably. He'd get something, he'd do a lot of work on gear, he'd do a lot of work on adjusting the characteristics of how he built his character, what he took, why he took it, making it work. And then something would come along and it would no longer work. So the next time we did a TR, it ended up being something else. And that gets to be frustrating when you spend a lot of time and effort getting the gear and getting your things dialed in, just to have it taken out from underneath you.
Yeah, it happens for sure.
Yep.
I can hear Samus's voice over my shoulder saying that it says on the box, gameplay experience may change.
And it does regularly. And to be fair, I really appreciate some of the changes that they have made over the years. The fact that they it took a long time, but redoing how the enhancement tree system worked was a major engineering effort. And I appreciate the time and effort that they took. That's given us a lot of side benefits over the years. The fact that we can now have so many universal trees, and the fact that they can change things relatively easily to give us different experiences, I think has been fantastic. I love the flexibility that we have with our game. I really do. I think that that's part of what has made this, like Voodoo, we've been playing since 2009, right? So it's been just a few years. And we play most days. Thankfully we can. And it's still fun. There's still lots of things I've never done, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but it's also, I think the four of us have to remember, since as people who kind of reincarnate a lot, that the experience of I don't reincarnate that much, and you broke my build, and now it's going to take me a while to get there. Now, there at a certain point, and I'm not going to try to like harp on it or stick a pin in where this point is. At a certain point, the amount of time it takes you to hit a reincarnation and get a character ready to reincarnate is not the build.
No, and it takes me a lot longer than it takes everybody else.
Right. But there's there is a point at which it stops being the build, and it starts being how you're playing, what difficulty you're playing. Look, if your build changes and it's suddenly less good and you want to get off it, I can appreciate that. And you don't want to buy a heart. Okay, I can appreciate that. Because that can be kind of a little bit of a pain. If you're running solo and still trying to run R4, and your build is broken, like it's not the build still anymore, right? Like there are some choices you are making that are making that more challenging when you don't necessarily need to. Now there's also players that just don't go as fast as I do. Like
Many of us.
shush you. And but all that to say, like there are other resources there that can help mitigate that build crunch on you. Now again, you have to reincarnate to get off it. I get it, right? Like there's some parts there, but yeah. The other thing I would kind of throw out there is that all the talk about changing the meta to, like, it's not always nerfs, and I think we can all agree that we don't like it when our characters get nerfed. But I think Grubbby was kind of alluding to this a little less directly. If you look at the last couple of years, the meta changing, I feel like it's been more additive. Like here's well, I'm not sure if you would call the new Epic Destiny system additive or attractive. They're still we've debated that a few times, I think, Voodoo, about the things we lost versus the things we gained there. But like
Maybe we should take a vote now because I think Voodoo would win the vote at this particular session.
No, I think we were on the same page, if I remember.
Yeah, I mean,
More or less.
we lost some, we gained some.
I agree with Voodoo's statement that I've heard many times that he still misses his twists of fate.
Yeah,
that I definitely. Yep.
Yeah, that being able to take things from more than 3 trees was really powerful and really useful for a lot of the things that I did. I will say that getting rid of epic defensive fighting for me personally is a wonderful thing because of the characters that I've tended to run. Remember, I was running a melee trapping bard. I needed to be able to spot heal anybody in the party from anywhere in the room. For me, epic defensive fighting was useless. Worse than useless, it just ticked me off.
I like the choice it made people take, but sure. I must be on an island because I see a lot of the chat's kind of like meta changes are usually nerfs. It's the one
But I was healing you.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. But I think if you're the kind of person that, and it's not a knock on if you want to play the game this way, have fun. But if you're going to be a player who wants to have the top tier build so you can run the top tier hardest content and have the bestest of the bestest builds, you're going to feel the changes a lot more than someone like Voodoo or myself that kind of rolls with the punches a little more.
Well, and to be fair, me as well, because I make my adjustments based on what I have available, but I'm not in that very top tier by any means. I think I can kind of
play
see
mostly
it sometimes.
bards. It's been a long time since bard has been brokenly powerful.
Well, but when we're not running with you, I've been tending to run ranged. I've been ranged on by main now for quite a long time. Over a year, I think I've been doing ranged instead of bard.
Yep.
To get my past lives. When they give me new ones, I tend to get most of them. Not the dark apostate, because for my bard that has no use, but the other ones I've been doing. Storm Singer is really fun. I will say that. I'm having it's been a number of years since I've been doing a caster bard. And I think that it's more powerful, I believe, now than it was before. Of course, my tune is more powerful now than it was before, but I'm really enjoying it.
No, I mean, I would second that because I have my bard that I haven't TR'd or done past lives on, and he's definitely more powerful more recently. So, I like this perspective. Mediocre Mouse is in our chat is saying personally they don't care much about meta tunes. It only takes me about 2 to 3 weeks to get bored of a life and then TR to something different. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, the fact
there's
that
those
look,
people
we can
too.
do so many we can do so many different things now. It's really fun.
Yeah.
The people that make me crazy are the ones that say, "Oh, I don't like what I've done. I'm gonna delete this character. I'm gonna delete this tune." I'm like, "No, just get to 20 in TR or get to 30, better yet, and then do an ERTR or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Get a past life, make it better, be different."
And we'll also toss out that there are ways to respec a character into something a little more viable, to like get to wherever you want to get to reincarnate, by changing enhancements and maybe changing a little bit of gear and stuff. Like there's some ways around it, but I
Do
think
an
that
ER,
yeah,
right? I
you
had
could
a tune that was a
if you're in
fist
epics, you could do
fighter.
that.
I was in epics. I needed ERs on her. I did an ER on her, and I turned her from a fist fighter into a Zen archer, and ran her as a ranged build, and that was huge fun. I think I was working on a paladin past life on her at that point. So trapping monk pally. It was quite effective, and it was really fun.
I want to second that because I've known folks that are in that camp that oh, I messed it up. The answer is always like make a new tune. Like I would really encourage you know those folks to at least power through to 20, reincarnate and get a past life out of it, build your power instead of the constantly making of the new tune. If you're interested in building your power, some people just aren't. But yeah, I would definitely second that go to 20 and reincarnate.
It doesn't feel different when you first would start doing reincarnations, and you're not good at it, right? Experience does make a difference. So the first time or two that you reincarnate, the process is uncomfortable. As you do it more often, whether it's with the same character or different characters, you as the player get better at the process, and you figure out what you need to do and where you need to do it and how to do it, that sort of thing. And being able to make the change, that power that you gain, at first you really don't feel it. You can start getting a couple lives under your belt, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh, hey, this feels a little different. It feels a little I feel like I'm a little more resilient," because you are, and you can start to feel that difference, and it just builds from there.
Jumbie in our chat is saying some builds and classes get better as you go, so it's a mistake to delete. So I think bow builds are the classic version of that. I don't know anyone, pretty much everyone I know that is like, I play almost exclusively ranged bow builds at Cap. Like they all have the same comment, like there's a pain to level.
Having a group for that really helps. Helps a
I'm
whole lot.
I was gonna my last thought on this whole matter was like friends. Like the
Yes.
meta is going to change. Well, maybe not the meta, but like, look, builds are going to change. They're going to tweak things here and there. Yeah, there's another call out for Thor builds being horrible to level. Look,
Agreed.
I understand that people will play solo and want to play by themselves. Have at it. Play the game how you want to play the game. But I will point out that friends, whether they're actual people that you are friends with, like the four of us here, or just joining pugs randomly here or there, or throwing up an LFM, more people in your party will cover a lot of the quote deficiencies you're feeling in your build or whatever. And that's true even if you're playing like a top tier meta thought out build, right? Like yeah, tanks are kind of a pain to level as well. I don't usually level it as a tank. I take the feats for a tank and spend my enhancement points as two-handed fighting and or something like that. Change on the way, but be offensive beforehand. But play with other people will smooth out those rough edges, right? So
And having a guild or, finding a collaboration with other people in other guilds or other whatever can really help too.
mhm.
I mean, if and trying to make arrangements with people that you run with. If you really enjoy running with somebody, say, "Well, I'm gonna be available tomorrow or whatever day. Do you think you might be around?" Start trying to make connections.
It helps, especially on hardcore too.
True. Hardcore especially.
leverage other people. It can drastically improve your gameplay.
And always hide behind the Sork, especially in hardcore.
In an emergency, sorcerers can be used as a shield, right, Voodoo?
You betcha.
All right, so we're gonna review update 57, and talk about that content. So this was Grip of the Hidden Hands. This was what do we say? It was November 7th, I think, something like that. It's been out for a couple weeks. That's kind of the long story short there. So let's just start with kind of overall quick thoughts. And then we'll dive into
Nice
the weeds.
variety of quests.
Yeah. Yep.
I thought this content was pretty good in general for the quests, with the exception of the courtroom quest, which I got tired of before I even completed it the first time.
Right.
I got to admit that yesterday, over the last couple of days, I decided to replay all the quests because I wanted to refamiliarize with them before we did this show. I skipped the courtroom one.
Yeah, that's one that's going to be skipped. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I ever, partway through a quest, said, this repetition is too much before I completed it once.
Might have a different experience on that.
Well, you ran it with people who'd already done it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you skip the dance sequence, which is the most annoying.
I tried, but I got outvoted. Yeah, I think it's a solid update. I feel like Voodoo and I have had this a repeat of this conversation before. Like, it's not going to blow your socks off, but it felt solid. Well, let's talk about we'll dial in on the quests themselves, and I'll kind of jump in here. Like, I'll echo what Voodoo said. Like, the variety of mobs was nice. Like, it can be pretty, especially when you get like the expansions, right? Like, you look at Isle of Dread, Ravenloft, Sharn, Feywild. Like, as much as I like a lot of those, right? The mob variety is kind of constrained over that number of quests, right? And here you have a pack with 5 quests that has more mob variety than I think any of those expansions.
Not just the mobs, but the artwork inside me. The buildings and the locations are all quite different, which I found really fun.
Yeah, so they leveraged that really well. I didn't mind the courtroom quests. I think I would have not liked it if it was a bigger area. I felt like as small of it, as small as an area was, like having the changing, or changing around or whatever. That's, if it was really big, that'd be a little more annoying. But it didn't feel like it was too big, and it was laid out in a way that it was pretty easy to run it in a loop. So there's that. I don't know. The quest variety was fine. It was pretty easy to pick up on like what we were doing from a storyline perspective. I will say there were a couple of points in the narrative that is like, I don't know that I've ever built a character that would ever do that. Like that I would, like at the very end, it's like, this guy looks suspicious. Yeah, here, let me give you the things that I've been collecting. Like, I feel like I don't know that I wanted to be that giving, and my character, it felt a little naive, but otherwise, yeah. So that was kind of my thoughts on some of that.
On the other hand, there are a wide variety of people that play our game.
Mhm.
Some people adore quests that others hate. And so there's, the fact that this is not to some of our preference doesn't mean that it's not going to be one that's a favorite to somebody out there.
Totally. Yeah, I don't mean to harp on. I'm not interested in harping on the courtroom one. It's just, it's not my flavor. But I could see other people just loving it.
Sure. We have some of the same thing like with like the pit, right? Some people detest it, some people love it.
Hmm. I really like revisiting some of the older, you know, content or themes. Like we revisited Shavrath. And so
Yes.
this is like Peril of the Planar Eyes Part 2. And we did that in Peril of the Planar Eyes Part 1 when we revisited Menectrin and we revisited the Sulatar Drow. So I really like that they're occasionally doing that. I think that's a really cool component to Update 57.
I agree. And it's you feel like you're there, but it doesn't feel like they're just reusing things that were already in those other packs, which I thought was really, really nicely done.
I did like there was some creative use of art assets in the pack too. Throw that
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Agree.
Any other thoughts on the quests? I'll throw out that I do like that we're playing with Vecna some more. I kind of like that tie-in and thread. It at the same time, anytime that it's not this update's fault, but anytime we kind of like have that through line of these other characters that I like it is really cool. How come we haven't gotten back to Grizzit yet? Or like some of these other hanging threads that are out there. Right? Like I like the new thread. Vecna's fun and really cool looking, and I'm happy Vecna's part of our game now. But also like there's some hanging threads out there that would be nice to maybe and they don't all like. I'm not sure that the Shavrath storyline is completed. Like the Eretrico storyline is completed. It might be. The Stormreaver storyline like has an end though, right? And that's one of my favorite. It's still one of my favorite storylines in the game. Like you go, it starts really low level and it just kind of keeps going all the way. But then there's a finite end point of that storyline. I feel like more of our storylines need that like end point too. So,
Of course, if they end, they can't add new stuff in.
but you can have more storylines. They're right. You can add. They're always adding storylines, right? Like
Sure.
Vecna's entirely a new storyline. So, but that's
Something
not
that happened in parallel with 57, but not really part of 57 that hammers the repetition theme I wanted to mention is the new alternate ending to Skeletons in the Closet. It came along about the same time. And watching people do 25 or so says in a row while you stand around just is too much repetition.
Yeah, we kind of glossed over that. We'll come back to that. Mention that as well. Let's see. Should we talk about the loot?
It seems like it's mostly decent. There's no sets. It's not as good as what you can get in some of the expansion packs, but the fact that you don't have to buy an expansion to get it means that I think it's a good addition to the game.
The only things I found noteworthy were the augments, and a couple of those are pretty interesting, and the new bastard sword.
Everybody's calling it the Skittle sword. That is a fun and interesting sword.
Skittle sword. I like.
I'm not
that.
sure it's particularly good, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that sword would be kind of. I wonder if it would actually be better as like a thrower offhand weapon. Like probably not, because there's probably some of the things you can get for crafty things, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's. Look, I feel like I keep having the same problem with loot. I appreciate and why they did this stat squish. It's making the new loot less interesting because it's barely better than what I have. Slotting
And without the set bonuses, it probably isn't better than what you have.
well, there's
But
set
it
bonus
needs
problems too, but it's not just like, oh, here's the thing. Like if I'm on a caster build, right? Like, here's an item that I can get another 6 spell power for. But if I put in a 1% crit multiplier chance or whatever it is, but if I do that, that goes into this slot, which means I lose that item, which means I have to move that item somewhere else. So it's like the increment is so small that the gear Tetris becomes a pain in the ass.
It becomes not worth the problem, especially if you're going to be changing your build because you're going to be doing some more past lives of some other sort. However, it does feed quite nicely to my sentient gems.
It does at that. Although, side note, I would love to see more quest packs just have a chance to drop sentient XP. Maybe it doesn't have to be 1,000 XP gems, but like,
Please, though, I'd like those.
So there's that. That is a thing. But yeah, so it's not to say that like there might like occasionally there's usually like one item I end up finding that fits in somewhere into somebody's gear set, kind of a thing. So there's always kind of that possibility. I do kind of want to jump back. The augments are great. We've been having this problem for a while, in my opinion, but everything doesn't need to be bound to account. Like, I don't mind having some things about it, but like, it's a little annoying to me at this point that all the named stuff, including the augments, is just always bound to account now, as opposed to just being unbound. I get it. They're like, I understand that they want us to run the content to get the stuff, okay, but it kind of dampens the auction house. Here's the thing: like, packs should have things you can put on the auction house. That's the thing.
A lot of the random gen gear is decent. It's not as good as the set bonuses that we get with some of the gear sets that we have available today. I mean, I put a lot of stuff out on the auction house, and a lot of it ends up selling because not everybody has all the expansions. And when you first start getting up into the higher levels, you need stuff, or you're trying to put together items for a new character type that you haven't run before. For me, a lot of the issue is space. While you don't see them, I do actually have a number of different character classes, and I have run them. So I have gear for them, but that means that I've got a lot of mules holding a lot of gear. And that means if I do start running one of these characters that you never see very often, I can put some gear on them and have them run fairly quickly. That there's a limited amount of space that we have available, and not having someplace to say, okay, I want to go and put all this stuff in my house, for example. We don't have that as an option. So it has to be on another tune, or it has to be, and I can't take bound to account things and put it on a mule on a different account, for a free to play account, for example. Space inventory and space management is an issue with our game. All this bound to account stuff, basically, you got to get rid of it one way or the other, sell it or feed it or crunch it or whatever. Name stuff you can't crunch. You can't deconstruct. But you can feed it to a sentient jewel, which is always helpful.
So I'd like to see more of a consolidation, or more items with consolidated thematic stuff. And what I mean by that, it seems like I see this a lot lately, where an item will have two things that are related to each other, like maybe spell power and lore, and then two things that have nothing to do with that. And maybe that works for some builds, and that's cool. But I think we don't have enough stuff where, this item has all four of its abilities have to do with each other. So, instead of having an item with spell power and lore, and then, shield and resistance, which has nothing to do with spell power and lore, can we please get items that have like spell power and insightful spell power and the corresponding lore and insightful lore, instead of like, oh, these two spell powers, and if you happen to use this other one at the same time, great. Otherwise, this item isn't that great for you,
Exactly.
Stop. Why do we need an acid item that also has cold on it too? Like, can we just have all the acid stats on an item? But one example that I feel like is good, like the legendary Dusk lenses, that's got quality wisdom, evocation focus, insightful evocation focus, quality spell focus, mastery. So if you're like an evocation wisdom caster, which is pretty common, like that's great. That all goes together. I'd also like to see maybe, us lean towards maybe adding an extra slot and maybe taking off one of those abilities that could be just augmented. That way we can choose what goes in there, especially when you see things where the augments are highly competitive with what the stat is anyways.
I
Yeah,
did
I like that
notice
the
that
augments do that. Yeah.
I did notice that it felt to me like a lot of the higher percentage of items had 2 augment slots. So I kind of wonder if that's going to be a theme going forward with because this is level 31 gear, which is I think it's the first time we've had gear that's that high. So I do kind of wonder if maybe as we get into higher level gear, that the intention here is to have more augment slots.
Could be. I mean, certainly Isle of Dread stuff is all about building completely interchangeable things based
Right.
on your want. But that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of grinding, which isn't necessarily a fun thing. I'm ignoring it completely right now because of the grind involved. I'm just
Yeah.
not willing to take the time and effort to grind out something because the meta is going to change again, right? However, I don't think that it's I'm agreeing with Voodoo here. If you give me something that has, shall we say, melee stuff and caster stuff on the same item, and then you give me 2 slots so I can try to fix what's missing, why don't you just give me what I really need to begin with? Don't be mixing up. Maybe some builds they need it, having a few items that do that, sure. But having that be a theme for the last, year and a half more? I think that's somebody's gone down a wild tangent and is having some kind of fun, in my opinion, and not paying attention to what people need to make their builds work. And so those items, for the most part, my guess is, aren't being used as anything but sentient food.
Yeah. It also has the same problem too that we've had for years now of we have so much gear at this in this space. So much.
Yes. Back to my point too, exactly. And I'll agree with Lord High Pudding there. I don't have the bank space for everything I really want to have for all the different level ranges.
Yep. High Lord Pudding says he doesn't have the bank space for all the gear sets needed for the different level ranges needed for a game that relies on reincarnation process to survive. Yeah, that's why I consolidated into I'm going to keep gear set for these 3 builds, and all my TRs are going to be into these three builds.
I found that I have actually it predates most of the new expansions that a lot of people are using for their gear sets. And I have that gear set with just a couple of 1 or 2 pieces switched out, works for everything so far. And what I found also was that for most of the things that I do, that crafted gear set with a couple of augments does better for me with what I'm doing than the named items. I spent all the time and effort to put together a named gear set at, level whatever, 5, 10, 15, whatever. And it did not give me as much of what I needed as my crafted. So I went back to my crafted, and I keep a set for the other characters that are outside of the very few things that are outside of what I tend to do, but I just tend to use my crafted gear set. Works great. Now, as I said, I'm not the, the highest tier player by any means, pretty far down that list, but I have works.
You're higher than you give yourself credit for. Anyone else have comments on the loot before we move on to their stuff?
I hope they continue to give us interesting augments going forward. I think that's a design space they're doing well at.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
Maybe not
totally.
bound to character or bound to account. Unbound, please. Unbound augments.
Yes. Unbound, yes.
But yeah, that's a fun fun space that they're playing in right now, and I agree. I'm totally for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and there was a comment in the chat about raid gear being all bound to character, and yeah, it's frustrating to pull a nice named item. Raid gear is bound to character, and like on my raid tune, who is ranged, I have a number of things that I'm kind of half afraid to throw away because what if I decide I want to make her into, you pick your class, and I have this nice piece of gear that would work really well. And, I don't want to, some of those I haven't been feeding those, I've been keeping them. But again, then I run into that inventory space problem.
And a $50 wish of memories isn't a good solution.
No,
That's only on sale
no.
part of the time. Yeah, there's that.
That.
Raid gear is like the one place I don't mind bound to character. Like I'd be a little concerned if you made it bound to account. Like, would people pass raid gear very much? Not that there isn't bound to account raid gear, but
It'd be technically too difficult, but it'd be nice if it was bound to character, but over time it will become bound to account when it's no longer new gear.
That's an interesting thought.
maybe see something like that, or maybe it. So here's a crazy thought. What if the stuff that dropped from the chest was bound to character, but if you bought it with runes, it was bound to account?
Ooh, I like
Or
that.
maybe there was a version that was higher, more runes that was bound to account than the bound to character one, or something like that. I don't know.
Well, and there's times like my main has been on the TR train, and I've had a couple of other when she's done, which is of course a temporary thing because they keep adding stuff, which is fine. But then I'll have another tune, and I'll like doing things in a similar way. So I have another tune that I'm doing some TRs on, and I want to do the same kind of build. But if I'm using bound to character gear, I can't give it to the other character. So I know that is something where it is nice to be able to move things around to somebody else.
Hound gear doesn't need to be bound to character anymore.
Sure. All right. Let's move on to a couple of other changes. Let's talk about Imbue dice. So this is a new change, which I think it would be fair to stick into that, changing the meta bucket, but I think in a way that is a more holistic system. So, I don't know. Let's talk about Imbue dice. How do you guys feel about the Imbue dice changes?
I don't have really specific feelings. I literally one character, I think.
Your warlock?
Well, no, I shouldn't say that, but it just doesn't feel like it has much of a change on what I'm doing. But so I'll just say that if it seems like what they're trying to do is take a bunch of little systems of extra damage dice and streamline that into one system that can now provide extra damage dice for everybody. And that seems like a smart thing to do, to have like one big system instead of a whole bunch of little systems. Maybe there's going to be some bumps in the road. We can smooth them out. So from an abstract perspective, it seems like a really good idea. And I don't really have any more opinions about it.
Patrick, you're actually running some tunes that might be, in fact, more than I am. So what do you think?
Yeah, like the one. Yeah, so I started playing Inquisitive. I guess got to that point in my reincarnation cycle. It's, I don't think how to say this. I like the system better. I like how it plays. It crosses with different different trees and stuff, kind of in a nicer way. It opens up some interesting build opportunities. I am not paying as close of attention to it as I think I initially thought I might. And to say that, like, the system is working, and I think it'll play well into the future. It's not really changing how I'm building, though. Like, I'm not chasing... Like, the places to chase them in the different trees aren't really conducive to how I want to spend my points anyways. And, we were talking about loot for a bit. I'm a little disappointed that none of the loot has +1 Imbue dice on it. I don't know if that's a technical challenge or something like that.
Well, they'd have to go back and change existing gear, so we may see it in future gear.
Well, I'm not saying like change existing gear, but like, yeah, High Lord saying it doesn't say change builds or playstyle. Yeah, right. Like, it's not changing my build or playstyle, but there's opportunity there to put some stuff into. There needs to be more low hanging fruit to play with the system. I think is what I'm trying to get at. Like, more of the epic destinies, I think, need to have like a thing in the side somewhere that's like, here's an extra Imbue dice, right? That would entice me to spend points in that direction. Some new gear stuff that pulls me in that direction to play to slot to get that extra damage dice, right? Like, the groundwork is great, but that's where I see it. It's kind of, it needs to expand into. But I do like that if I'm spending, depending on how I'm spending my points, that, this thing here is giving me Imbue dice, and this thing over here that can also give me Imbue dice to that thing in that main tree. Like that, I like that as a concept. Just not sure it's gonna change my building as much as I thought it might.
I only have one character, my raid tune that's an inquisitive that that really even has Imbue dice, and so I have not made any changes to her. I've just been running her the way I have all along. I haven't noticed any significant differences one way or the other.
On the surface, I was irritated by the loss of the 14d6 from the filigree procs, but when I actually ran the numbers, it turned out to be a nerf, but not enough of a nerf to make any difference.
Well, I mean, that's good. Anything else about Imbue dice? Positive. I think general consensus is positive. Looking forward to see how it expands.
Kind of irrelevant to me. The only negative is it's going to cost me a lot of sentient toolkits to fix my filigree sets again.
Which is pretty unfair, in my opinion. You make a whole bunch of changes to things that now we have to have the toolkits to take out and fix things around.
Well, if you want to take it out.
Yeah, but what if it no longer does you any good whatsoever?
Well, but you can destroy it. You don't have to use a toolkit to pull it out. You can use a destroyer to just destroy it. You don't get it back, but if you have like 20 of that particular
I'm not going to destroy my rare filigree for that.
No. Yes, I understand that.
So in reality, it's going to cost us a lot of sentient toolkits.
Just in case anybody doesn't realize, when you buy the toolkits as a 10 pack, they are a smoking deal.
Oh, they are. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't buy them in singles.
No, ever. And sometimes they go on sale. I recommend sales as well.
December deals coming up. They might pop on sale there as well.
Would be good.
All right. So the next big thing was the hit point pass. So this was a pretty significant change. This is where we lost epic defensive fighting. We got base dice got increased for most classes. And then there's competence hit point bonuses like everywhere in the trees now. It's kind of crazy. So what do people think about these changes?
Other than the unnecessary angst from the first Lamania preview, I think it's fine. It turned out to exactly the way they intended it, at least what they said they intended it. All my low B melees got a significant boost to hit points, and my in builds all got a noticeable but not huge boost as well. So I'm all for this. I don't see anything downside other than, they didn't need to scare everybody with preview 1.
I'm glad that epic defensive fighting is gone. I'm glad that I'm getting extra hit points out of my shield feats, but those weren't, you know, not included like they originally were with epic defensive fighting. I don't like the philosophy of we're going to decide to give certain, you know, play styles who we feel you're just going to get a bunch of extra hit points. You know, just if you want to give people extra hit points, just give it to everybody. Just give everybody 20% more hit points. And I mean that. A rising tide lifts all boats instead of we're going to, you know, this, you'll get it, and you'll get it, you'll get it. But, you know, FU hybrids, you know, some people like to do stuff that's a little bit different. And I feel like sometimes, you know, this stuff can really you know, discount those folks. So, you know, just give it to everybody. And I sincerely mean that. I'm not saying that like, you know, cynically. Just give it to everybody. Build it in the cake. You know, you get 1% more hit points every level through level 20. Everyone. But, you know, they've decided, oh, these classes and enhancement trees and build types, oh, you have enough hit points already. I'd like more hit points too. I just want to let you know that I'd like more hit points too.
I'm looking forward to finding out how that affects my melee trapping bard, but it'll be a while before I get there to see what changes that affects. Because right now I'm not going to get them being in the caster trees right now.
I did find it interesting that I feel like I noticed the extra hit points more when I went to a rogue build in a rogues than when I was playing a caster. Felt a little weird. I feel like I would have noticed it a little bit more playing a
You
caster,
blow them
but
up too fast. You blow them up so fast you don't notice.
uh,
You're either dead or you're alive. It works.
yeah. But even like the top line number, it was kind of funny. I don't know, it just kind of. I would have thought I was gonna notice it when I was playing a sorcerer a little more than when I was playing a rogue, but I really noticed it. Was like my rogue has 1,000 hit points at this level. That's weird.
Me.
Like thinking back to the days when like a level 20 rogue had like 400 hit points.
Yep. Yeah, it
So,
sure does help. I mean, rogues are usually, one hit from dead, maybe two if you're really lucky. But depending on what you're running, some you're less than a hit away from dead.
yep. Let's see. The only other thing that I had written down were the tweaks to falconry, which is kind of a minor thing, but it does make it play a lot smoother.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
That one's easy. I love the changes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, falconry has always been the cooldowns have always been so long. I mean, and thematically, I can understand why. Yeah, the bird's got to go and do stuff, but when it comes to actually playing, it really does help to have those cooldowns be a lot faster. It gives you a lot more survivability and it gives you a lot more utility, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the clock, you have 3 minutes to wrap up.
All right. Well, update 57. Let's kind of bundle it all together. We like to do letter grades for reasons. I'll just toss out start. I think a solid. I think a B is kind of where I land. I like the ancillary stuff. The loot's kind of lackluster, and the quests are nice.
I'm a tough grader. I'm going with B.
I'll go with a B minus, and if they fix courtroom, I'll raise it to a B.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right. Before we close out the show, I did want to give some space. Hey, we figured that I shouldn't say we. People in the DDO community figured out the optional for skeletons in the closet. So you can actually get up to 3 chests. I'm not going to detail it explicitly here, but you can go on the forums and find the information on what to do. But I did want to give a space. Probably kind of alluded to it. Like the optional, don't like the optional. How's it play for you?
I love that there's something to do while you're dead. That is a feature I've wanted them to bring to this game for a long time. I think that
Yeah.
part of it is super, super cool. I think the part where you have to say 37 different things to like creatures that are moving around. So say this sentence, say that sentence and move, say move, say. I think that is tedious and redonkulous. I'm glad that there is an optional. I like components of it. I don't like saying an essay.
And so many people just have to stand around doing nothing, twiddling their thumbs, or doing something else while all that /saying is going on.
You can watch your XP pots tick down.
Which is why my raid tune doesn't have any running. But yes, if you're trying to do things and you're trying to have tiny pots going, it's really silly.
Yeah.
I agree completely with Voodoo. I think it's great except for the /slay part.
The thing that I'll throw that I didn't hear you mention, the effort it took to figure it out, like the community puzzle, like I appreciate that that's in the game because there are people who really enjoy chasing that. I would have liked maybe if it was a little easier to figure out, like there was actually a thing there. I don't think it was necessarily too hard, and it felt like a really cool win when people figured it out, right? So I like that we have that in the game. The /say is definitely excessive, and to my understanding, you have to do it in sequence. You can't have like 4 people go to each corner and start doing it. Like right? Like there's
it is in sequence.
There's ways that it could have been. The actual gameplay of it could have been a hell of a lot better with the /say.
Certainly, kudos to the people who figured that out. That had to have taken obviously a long time. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Company.
Yeah, those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Gals, guys, folks, whatever. Yeah, thank you so much.
Props for them sharing it with others. See, some people would have found that out and just kept it to themselves. They right away was like told everybody, and I think that is just so cool.
Can you say that the name of who it was again? Does it get dropped? Arcanaverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I always want to make sure that gets put out in a clear way. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is I do like the that the chest has like unique things in it.
Mm-hmm.
I will harp on this and tell the cows come home. Like, if it's available in the raid and it's not a tome, it should be available to buy with raid runes. It doesn't have to be the same amount, but it should be available for purchase with raid runes.
I'll agree with that, especially since there are so many people in our guild. We have people that primarily run healers in the raids, and bless them because they keep us alive, they raise us when we're dead, they buff us, they do a lot of work, and they are fantastic. But they have other characters too, and the fact that because they're team players and they bring their healers primarily to the raids means that their other tunes generally don't get a chance to run the raids.
Right.
That means that it would be lovely if they could have the opportunity to get some of those items by buying them.
And like I said, they did this with like the Fate Twisted stuff with Dryad and the Demigod, right? Like you can buy the Fate Twisted stuff, but it's more expensive.
I don't mind if it's more expensive.
Exactly.
It should be available.
I still go back to like the Sentient Gem from Strahd. I don't care if it's 5,000 runes. 10,000 might be a little crazy, but like let me buy the damn thing.
If it's important enough to me,
runes and threads.
Exactly. Runes and threads. I love the rune and thread system. I really do. Some of the alts that I have are raid ready now because I was able to purchase with runes or with the raid runes things for a character that I had not run in the raid at all, which was fantastic. Like, such a difference. It's I really, really cannot say enough good about the rune and thread system.
Any other closing thoughts for anything whatsoever before we wrap up the show?
Devs, too much repetition is bad.
And how about this? This is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Things that feel bad aren't fun. So when changes are made or when things come out, if something is making people unhappy, they're less likely to enjoy the game and they're less likely to play. Um, I have known a number of people who basically say, there's too much, it doesn't feel good going on. They don't want to play right now. Maybe they'll come back someday, but maybe they won't. And that's a shame. So keep it fun.
Voodoo, why don't you plug your stuff?
Hey, I'm Uncle Voodoo, and you can catch me on my DDO morning show every weekday on my Twitch channel, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. We stream raids on Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can find me over on YouTube, where I have over 1,000 videos, quest walkthroughs, raid guides, crafting tutorials, and so much more. And after the new year, teaching raids are coming back for year 10, where we're going to teach new players how to raid and live stream it on channel DDO Stream. That's DDO's official Twitch channel. Look for
Awesome.
details in the Sarlona forum about our teaching raids. If you want to learn raids, we do it for you.
Isle of Dread this year. Be fun. With it, are you gonna do one with Isle of Dread with and without the optional?
Ooh, gosh. I was just gonna do it with the optional. No, probably just with the optional. And just explain if you don't want to do this.
Kill
you can
Ghost
just
Flame.
Go kill the Ghost Flame, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Grubby or Tashr, anything you want to plug?
Play DDO.
I just want to point out that that's your fun Uncle Voodoo, not your creepy Uncle Voodoo.
Appreciate you.
Fair point. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Grubbby, Tashr, and Voodoo for joining me this morning. And to all the folks who helped make DDOCast happen, and to Sands of Games and Wizard of the Coast, and to Cyberbears for being a great host for a lot of years. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage where you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at DDOcast.com for our show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff, including various adventures in DDO, D&D tabletop, and even some other games. I'll throw out, because there was a question on the chat, and it may become relevant with Cyber Ears going away. You can find DDOcast.com, you can find us there. There's also a YouTube page that you can go find the videos. So if you want to listen to the podcast through YouTube, you can do that as well. All those it also gets posted to the forums. Again, those aren't audio podcast versions, but the video goes to those three places: YouTube, the forums, and DDOcast.com. I mean, they're all pointing back to YouTube, but there's places there if you would like to find us. If you have a comment in this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us for the latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.